we are still in chapter 8 of Political Treatise by Baruch Spinoza. And chapter 8, he talks about the organization of an aristocratic form of government. He talks about so many aspects of such a government. And in fact, what he is doing in that chapter, and in fact, the following chapter, chapter 9, is providing or giving his own suggestions on how such a government can function or can be optimal or efficient. Now, he talks about so many elements of such a government, and I think I have covered a few of those in other videos, and I'm going to talk about others in other videos that I'm going to create. Now, one of the aspects of the aristocratic government that he covers is the military organization, and he starts by laying this foundation of the reality of an aristocratic government as far as its relationship with the multitude, the people. And this is what he says: since equality is not to be looked for among all, but between the patrician only, it makes no difference to the laws or fundamental principle of this dominion that the military be formed of others besides subjects. So basically what he's saying, when you are considering an aristocratic form of government, is like the common people are just ignored. Basically, you don't have to think about them that much. Of course you have, but like as far as trying to form a government or an army, it's not as important to include the multitudes as it is the case when you are looking at monarchy. So he says, with that being the case, the aristocratic form of government, or the patricians, the people who form this government, are not really bound to include the multitude into the army, or to hire only people from the dominion into the army. There is like a leeway for them to go and hire anybody. But he does later on say why it is still better, even when the patricians have that leeway, for them to hire locals and not people from outside. He continues to say, but it is of the first important that no one be admitted into the number of patricians that has not a proper knowledge of war. So he says, as part of this military organization of an aristocratic form of government, it is important that all patricians need to be educated or knowledgeable in the art of war, because it is them who are going to make critical decisions. And in fact, he does say in another part of the chapter that all the commanders or generals have to be patricians themselves. And he says, but for the subject to be excluded, as some will have it, from the military service is surely a folly. So here is where now he says, even though the patricians have this leeway that they can just ignore the multitude, the subject, and go ahead and hire people from outside to serve as their security or their military, he says it is folly. And this, he gives reasons. He says, for besides that the military pay given to subject remain within the realm, whereas on the contrary, what is paid to the foreign soldiery is altogether lost. The greatest strength of the dominion is also thereby weakened. So he says, if the patricians decide to hire people from outside the dominion to serve as their military, one of the things they lose in that arrangement is that whatever money is paid to these soldiers, it leaves the dominion, of course, because now these people have to send the money back to their families. But if you hire locals like the subject, then whatever money they are paid remains within the dominion. And in fact, there is another part of the chapter where he talks about, he contrasts. He says, because in another part of the book, when he was talking about monarchy, he did say that it's not necessary that the soldiers should be paid. They should not be paid. They should just fight for their dominion, and whatever they get out there when they are fighting as looting, then that's what they keep. But he says when it comes to an aristocratic form of government, it's important that these people be paid, because they are not part of really, they don't vote, and they don't provide any advice to the government. They are basically people who the patricians can ignore, so they should be paid because of that. And he continues to say, for it is certain that those who fight with peculiar valor, who fight for altar. He said, it is certain that those fight with the peculiar valor who fight for altar and a hearth. So he says, and this is another advantage of hiring the locals, because they will not only fight for the pay, they will fight to protect their homeland, of course, and that gives them a lot more passion to fight. He says, it manifests that those who are no less wrong, who lay down that military commanders, tribunes, it should be chosen. So here is where he says that regardless of all that, those who now hold all the positions of authority within the military should be patricians themselves. And he says, he also explains how these military commanders should be appointed. He says they should have a period, like it shouldn't be like somebody's appointed and they hold that position indefinitely. They should be like 1 or 2 years. It does give reasons why he thinks that should be the case. And he says, now the last paragraph on that I am covering is where he talks about that the militia of a monarchy it shouldn't be paid, but that of an aristocratic form of government should be paid, because in fact the words he's used is that they are as good as foreigners when it comes to how they are recognized in this arrangement of governance.